My first missions trip to the Philippines, it was difficult and challenging, and I love kids, and I knew God created me to have kids. I have 3 girls of my own, but I've always wanted to adopt, and that's never been in the cards. But I knew God prepared me to do missions for kids because I get a little piece of them. We went to a street kids camp, and they are girls that live on the street. We were worried that they're very hardened because they're often on drugs. They sniff glue to ease the hunger pains because they don't eat. So they come to the camp high, and they spend 24 hours coming off that high, and then we come in and try to connect with them. So here we were, worried and concerned that this would be difficult. They came in bounding out of the jeepney, running down the stairs, embraced us in seconds, and I knew I was where I was supposed to be. There was a special little girl, and she connected to me instantly. She was 5 years old. She lived on the streets, and we were taking the girls down to the river, and they live in Manila, so it is dirt and concrete, and they sleep on cardboard piled on top of each other for safety. So this camp they get to go to and sleep and reprieve and relax, that they don't have to worry who's behind them or who's chasing them or what's going to happen to them when they sleep. They get to eat. They get to play and be kids. She's 5 years old. So we take them all down to the river where they can swim because it is hot. Could you imagine being hot and not getting to jump in water? So this is brand new for most of them. And they don't speak English. There's a huge language barrier, but there's no language barrier for God's love. So we got in the jeepney, and she sat next to me, and I looked down, and her head was covered in bleeding, open, sword scabs just from her itching her head from cradle cap or something that was never taken care of. And the smell was so bad, I didn't know how I was going to love on this child with literally oozing sores. I just closed my eyes, and I said a quick prayer that God would just help me to love her. And from that point on, I never smelled anything bad. She was in my lap. Her head was all over my shoulder. She called me Mama Rachel by the time we were done. We were swimming in this river together, and I rocked her to sleep at night, and I got to lay her down in bed. And she was up before I was in the morning trying to get me out of bed. But those 3 days with that precious child, and I haven't ever got to see her again. But her name is written in my heart, and I pray for her every single day. And I got to share the love of Christ with her. And so whatever difficult situation or challenge that you do face, God just blesses you and carries you through. And I've got to see him do that in the lives of my team members, and it is just really amazing. There is 1 million street kids in the Philippines. There's 4 classes. So you have this street kid that is choosing to live on the street because they want to be involved in a life of drugs and alcohol and abandonment and doing whatever they want. You have the second type of street kid that parents are dead and they don't have any place else to go. Often they don't have birth certificates because at the time that they were born, their parent didn't want to pay the fee. So they're just floating around. I mean, you can't adopt them. They're unadoptable. They don't have the ability to go to a family. Then you have the street kid whose mom or dad works 12 to 14 hours a day and just is never home. If they are home, they sleep. So this child isn't being taken care of. They're not being made to go to school. They're not getting breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And then you have the fourth kind of street kid that their parents have had 8 kids. They can't afford the child anymore. And so they basically say, you can't come home. The need for a person to go over there and to open a home that could house these street children and really raise them up, it is a huge challenge, but it is something that I'm hoping one day I will be able to go over and do, because I don't need to own these kids, but I certainly would love to give them the opportunity to feel love and to grow and to get educated and to be fed and to hear who their Savior is. And that's the huge need that I see in the Philippines from short-term mission work, is just the street children and their need for someone to come and be their voice.